You're listening to Cards to the Moon, a podcast about trading cards from both a collector and investor perspective. We hope you'll stick around for the ride as we take a deep dive into the state of the hobby, share some hot takes, hopefully some useful advice, and fun stories along the way. Hey guys, welcome to Cards to the Moon. This is another Friday edition, episode number 111. My name is Clark from 5Card Guys on Instagram and 5cardguys.com. With me co-hosting, as usual, is Hyung of Integrity Sports Cards, as well as John, who is Trade You at Recess. All right, off the top, let's just get this over with. We just aren't that great at predicting values of super high-end sports cards. And again, we were way off with how much we thought the Mickey Mantle 1952 Topps SGC 8 graded card would go for.
Oh boy.
And yeah, old boy's right. I personally was way off. I think I was the furthest away from the final amount, guessing over $4 million. Well,
Crazy.
It sold for $600,000 US at Heritage Auctions. So I'm just going to throw it to you guys. Initial thoughts on the sale.
I think it was undersold. Obviously,
Okay.
we thought so collectively, just based on kind of like previous PSA sales, right? So it's like, remember that story of the PSA 9 selling, right, for 4.2 million? We said that was crazy, and that was at the height of kind of like that 2021 year, right? So if you think about that and kind of like where SGC falls, I think in general it's a steal, to be honest, because, or at least there's really good value at 600K, because that to me that's and I actually it was shocking, because we're looking at that and we're like, geez, we were way off, like not even close, but it does make sense, right? But low pop, I think there's literally single digits of SGC, and there's like PSA 7s, for instance, there's like pop 77. So if I look at value, I think SGC, because they have such a strong vintage, I guess, what's it called? Kind of like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like reputation, you know, for being pretty good at vintage. So I think there's a lot of value. Whoever bought that, right? Because the PSA inflation, and there might be a little bias of maybe the higher grade cards were sold at a premium more than what they were actually worth, right? So it's kind of I think a collection of both, in my opinion.
I see that for sure.
Yeah. I mean, we all guessed over by millions of dollars. So we should be under the opinion that this is probably a steal, but again, what the heck do we know? But I mean, it's just funny. It's I feel like it's both a good look and a bad look for SGC, in the sense that the ratio of PSA 9 values to SGC 8 seems really off on this sale. So in one sense, it's not a good look, but in the other sense, you know, that's another mint condition Mickey Mantle going into an SGC slab. So, I mean, you know, any press is a good press, as they say. So, yeah, I mean, when you take another look at it, it's not centered. So maybe
it's off-centered for sure.
Yeah, maybe those purists that always say, you know, SGC 1, PSA 1, but it's centered, you know, this is going to command supreme value. They're going to come at everybody, say, see, I told you so. Look at it. It's SGC 8, but it's off center. Look how much money it was tacked off. So I don't know. Like, I think this is going to give a little bit more ammo to those people that own this Mickey Mantle in a, like a well-centered Mickey Mantle. So we don't know why it sold for, this is just us kind of looking visually. It just seems like maybe it's mainly because, number one, SGC slab, and number two, it's off center. But yeah, it does seem low compared to what we've seen from Mickey Mantle cards.
I will throw the data out there, because I just actually I have it screen capped here when I was looking. Remember when the PSA 9 sold for 4.25? million. So that was kind of like PSA pricing, like in terms of what PSA values it. And you can never go with PSA values, but they had the PSA 9 listed at 4.25 million. They have an 8.5 listed at 2.2 million as the PSA value. They have a PSA 8 listed at 1.56 million, and then a PSA 7.5 goes down to 295,000.
Wow.
Right. So if you extrapolate kind of like the SGC 8, you could see where it fits between kind of like the 7.5 PSA and the 8 at 295,000 and 1.56 million.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Didn't the SGC 9.5, that one sold for what?
12.5. That's why. That's another reason, right? It's the highest graded SGC.
Right.
Right. And you're talking single digits pop counts for SGC.
Right.
Yeah.
No,
No, that's
and
crazy.
that's the highest sale Mickey Mantle of all time, right?
No, SGC, I believe.
Oh.
Or no, was it? Because there's no PSA 10s
Right.
sold.
The last PSA 10 sold, what, 20 years ago?
Yeah, it's not even
A while
like
ago.
private. It was a probably private sale too, and they value that over 30 million at the time. The 9.5 sold for 12.5.
Right.
So
Yeah. Well, I mean, just like you guys, I was a little surprised, maybe more than a little surprised that it's selling for 600K. Like, in comparison to this SGC 9.5, like we just mentioned, that one for 12.6 million. I mean, even if it was half that value at 6 million, I would have never thought the SGC 8 would be for 600K.
For
You know what I
sure.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
So I'm with you that this seemed like a good value for whoever got it, and I would just hold on to it. Yeah, it's off-centered, and that's probably why it got an 8. Probably, some might argue that it should have got a 7, but SGC probably wanted to make it look a little bit better so that they can, show off their slab, the Mickey Mantle in their slab. I think they would be probably disappointed that went for 600K. Like, I don't see them bragging about this sale anywhere.
No.
Previously, the 9.5, they were telling the world, look, 12.6 million, SGC 9.5. Like, I went on their website. I didn't look hard enough, but I don't see it right away. This SGC 8 sale that just happened,
Right.
Recently. So, I guess it's not a great marketing thing. It's like, oh, it sold for 600K.
Yeah.
I'm sure they wanted at least to hit the million mark, right? That would
Yeah.
have sounded way better. But I don't know. If I was the owner, I crack it. Submit it to PSA.
Probably PSA 6.
True. But sorry, SGC.
But I think, I'm just going through the SGC pop report for 52 mantles, and they have 1 9.5,
Right.
2 9s, 2
Okay.
8.5s, 4 8s, 16 7.5s, and then 17 7s.
Jeez.
And then just in PSA 7s on the mantles, I think there's 77.
Right. Okay.
So
So
just
still-
put in context. I don't know. You could extrapolate that data for what it is. Whether it's is SGC a great buy, or is it kind of like a second tier to kind of any PSA grade, right?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like, after this sale, I'm really questioning it more.
Yeah.
than
But I will say
before.
this: you look at the pop report. Honestly, that's the whole point of this. The Mantle 52 is that it's not that Mantle was the best ever.
Right.
It's the iconic card of the 1952 Topps, the backstory of what happened with the ocean, and Mickey Mantle being the status, the New York Yankees. It has all of that, and now it's like a Mona Lisa almost, right? So it's like, for me, it's like those are the buys, man, because it's not like you're trying to flip it. Even like, I don't know if I was that guy who bought the PSA 9. I don't know if I would take that flip, because you sell it and you did great, but same with the price of fiat currency, it probably went up the same amount,
Right.
in terms of the value. So he probably won't make as much money as he thinks, but I don't know if I would flip that just because of the rarity, and it's to the point where it's probably one of the most iconic cards, sports cards, period. Just
agree.
period.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely most
Collection,
recognizable.
investment,
Yeah.
it's all up
100%.
there. I mean, I'll tell you what, you put 10 $600,000 cards in front of me and ask me to choose one, and one of them being this Mickey Mantle, I'm pretty certain 90% plus are picking this Mickey Mantle if you're smart about it. So
yeah,
yeah,
that's a good point. All right. Yeah, a little surprised, but it is what it is. Just kind of related to this sale, are you a little bit more bearish now on the current state of the hobby? You know, like vintage was kind of the marker of like, oh, they'll always have this kind of, you know, baseline level, even through tougher economic times. But this kind of, you know, I don't know if this kind of changed your mind a little.
For me, it really doesn't, because like I said, we're talking iconic cards. We're talking about more of a art investment piece long term. So to me, it's not, if you took a modern card, for example, and showed off like a $600,000 sale, then it's easier to say, you know what, that probably was way overpaid. But like for me, I'm very bullish long term on the hobby, just because, you know, scarcity to me, like fiat currency is a perfect example. There is no scarcity, so that's why the valuation of the dollar is so low. It keeps on tanking, right? Because they keep on printing, because there's no scarcity. So for me, it's that whole concept now. And now that we're like officially living in a digital world, it's like we're connected. So it's like these valuable assets that are rare and scarce. I think there's a lot more value in alternative assets than there has ever been, especially with, you know, everything is digital. Like, what physical asset do you actually have other than kind of like your real estate or your art? You know, if you're in stocks or in crypto or anything like that, you're still on a digital ledger. At the end of the day, you don't have any physical, you know, thing to show for it, right? So I still think in terms of the hobby, I'm very bullish, especially on the super rare stuff. Sports and entertainment, I don't think is going anywhere. You know, it's part of our culture in terms of, you know, where we live. So, yeah, I'm bullish still on the sports card market. I just think there's going to be, like we said, we talked about this for the past year, that there's going to be great buying opportunities on, you know, good investment pieces. And you'll see that the vintage stuff really doesn't, I wouldn't say get hammered, other than, you know, you see the 86 Flair Jordan get hammered a bit, but we're not talking, that's not vintage. Right? If we're talking about vintage, you know, we're talking way back, you know, pre, you know, 70s, you know, 60s. You're talking about, you know, the big time cards that, you know, that you see the trend for the past, you know, 50 to 100 years. They've never really went down. You know, the Ty Cobbs, the Mickey Mantles, the Babe Ruths, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, true.
Yeah, doesn't really do anything for me either. I think the high-end market was always sort of separate to what is happening elsewhere. And I mean, we had a small sports card show that just passed on the weekend. I don't think, did you guys go?
I didn't.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to go either. But I mean, just based on some of the Instagram posts, it looked like a massive, probably the biggest turnout they've ever had.
Yeah,
so I mean,
it looked good.
We don't know how much money got moved. We don't know if people are actually spending money. But that's a pretty good indication that the interest is there, right? So
still there,
yeah, for sure. So I mean, I think like Hyung said, no matter what you feel about this, you're scared about it, or you're trying to. Nobody has a crystal ball, but this is sports and entertainment, and it's always been around, and it's not going anywhere anytime soon. So I think everyone's going to be fine. And also, if you kind of have been paying attention to pricing in the last 3 to 5 months, it does kind of look like we've hit a floor, because a lot of the cards that I'm still crossing my fingers, it's going to go down even more and even more. It just hasn't been moving lower than what it was 3-4 months ago. If not, some of them based on seasonalities or performance have actually started going back up. So it does appear that we've hit one of the floors. Maybe, you know, in the next little bit, it could go down again. But there seems to be some serious resistance over the last couple of months, if we're speaking strictly investments.
Yeah, it's a good observation for sure. And I'm looking at this Mike Trout Bowman Chrome autograph card. I think I lost my chance. It's already creeping back up again. So
right, baseball. I noticed as we're like kind of creeping into. I see a lot of baseball pricing
just around the corner.
Yeah,
you know? For sure.
There was actually a Bowman Chrome Trout refractor that was graded, I think, a 6, an auto
I think
10.
I saw that.
I was like, this is actually an interesting move. It's sold for like 56 or 65. I was like, that's not that bad. It's a refractor auto. You crack it out, and you might just go with the authentic auto 10 sub. You know
that
what
was
I
one
mean?
of your posts,
on that?
right?
Yeah, we did the last week. We did the PSA 7 and then the authentic. But I think in this situation, this is the total opposite. It's like it's actually a pretty good play because I wouldn't want that in a PSA 6. Like to me, if I'm looking at that particular card, I'm saying, what's wrong with it? There must be some kind of actual physical damage. Obviously, authentic would indicate the same thing, but at least you won't know. That it's like poorer than a 7, right? So
yeah, you were saying that we actually put a poll out there and we discussed it in our last pod, right? And most people chose the PSA 7 over the authentic, and that's what Hyung chose.
Wow.
I chose the authentic. Yeah.
I'd choose authentic 70... if I was a part of it.
Really? Okay, so it was like 70% to 30%.
Wow.
So I'm gonna put another one out there just for fun. I'm gonna lower to PSA 6.
What about? I think if you throw in the auto, it changes things. If it's an authentic auto 10 as opposed to just an authentic slab of a regular card, you know what I mean? Okay. So for instance, we did with Andrew's Shohei Ohtani. He had a visible crease or a bad corner that might have graded a 5. It's like he probably is going to get more value out of an authentic auto 10, right? Yeah. So, maybe it's a good pool.
Well, yeah, we'll do that. Anyway, I kind of want to we sidetracked a bit, but like we usually do when we talk sports cards. Yeah. But yeah, no, I'm with you guys. I'm still bullish long term. It's perspective too, right? 600K in a down economy is a lot of money still. So, that's a big chunk of change still. Okay, before moving on to today's Friday hobby discussion, just want to say we'll do our draw at the end of the show for our latest contest giveaway that we did over the past 2 weeks to give away the Topps Stadium Club Blaster Box. And we're going to take the names from all those who entered by liking the contest post on our Cards to the Moon Instagram page. So we'll do that at the end of the show. So don't worry. I know we promised we would draw the name this Friday. Okay, today I want to bring up the recent news that came up this week about Fanatics planning to enter the live stream shopping space later this year. I think the second half of this year. They're calling it Fanatics Live, and they've already hired Nick Bell, who is an ex-Google, ex-Snap executive, to be the CEO of Fanatics Live. So if you're wondering what live stream shopping is, it's already much bigger in Asia or in the Asian markets. And it's kind of like QVC or televised live shopping, right? But now this is completely on the internet. It's all digital. How this will look for Fanatics Live and for collectors in the hobby. Here's what an article says from the Wall Street Journal after they interviewed Nick Bell. Quote, "It will host video events led by digital content creators and influencers who focus on trading cards. Much of the initial content will focus on breaking, quote unquote, in which creators will open new boxes of trading cards live on camera and sell them to followers. Viewers will be able to buy cards directly from Fanatics app or website, with the company taking a portion of that sale." So in other words, it looks like Fanatics is getting into the breaking game, something we discussed way back when Fanatics took the license of Topps and what that meant for the hobby. The days come, and it was kind of almost inevitable. So what do you think about this new development? Should breakers all of a sudden worry, or companies like Whatnot start to worry, or will this just be another option for collectors to buy their cards?
I don't think breakers necessarily have to worry, because I feel like Fanatics has different intentions than just entering the breaking game. Because one, the article highlights creators and influencers. And we know from a marketing standpoint, what we talked about last episode was kind of like that, is we live in a digital world. So people who have influence and, control over, an audience basically wins over, right? So you have more of the attention. So Fanatics having that platform, I think it could lead into ways of marketplace, for instance, getting their share of eBay, having an audience, being entertaining. And it's a market that worked in the Asia kind of like side of things. So I think they have the kind of like audience to do it, and they're able to use digital marketing and creators and influencers to kind of get that attention they need to start doing stuff, like whether it's actually breaking and it's going to just stay that way. But to me it sounds like a bit more than that, kind of like marketplace. Let's get the attention, let's start controlling the audience a little better, because nobody in the card market really does that, right? So I think the key thing is they highlighted the influencers and content creators, and that's how important those are in any community, in any marketplace. That's digital marketing for you, right? So yeah, it just, for me, it makes sense that they would do something like that, because they already have a fan base. So it's like, how can they now enter the marketplace and basically what we said, monopolize? So eventually, being able to control the whole process of, grading, vaulting, all that stuff.
Yeah, makes sense.
I personally think in the short term, probably there is, for those that are in the space, not much to worry about. But for me, I'm worried about the word that Hyung just said, monopolizing. And Fanatics has the bankroll. I mean, if, they could have all the greatest intentions, and the first 1 to 5 years of business, they're talking about the hobby, and they're talking about working with influencers and breakers and small hobby shops and, local card shops. The intention could be great, but at some point they have the ability to start squeezing, right? They have the ability to, either bring out exclusive products or cut some of their profits a little bit thin to start to weed people out. I mean, it sounds very evil, but that's what the Costco's, Price Clubs, and the Costco's of the world. Like this is how you do business. This is how you get rid of convenience stores and stuff like that, right? So I think it is something to definitely be concerned about if you're on the outside, smaller business breaker, looking at this news. It should be completely fine in the short term, but you should have a pretty keen eye on it of what's happening.
Yeah, also a good point. I think the current breakers, the bigger ones, probably have less to worry about, because I think at the end of the day, it's about brand, right? If you build up your brand, then Fanatics is more likely to partner with you in the future. It's a kind of a, mutual partnership. They both benefit. But if you're just a regular breaker and you've been, trying to get your allocation, I think that's going to become much more difficult moving forward too. Like if you're just kind of in the same mindset that, I can coast, or I could just have the same business plan year after year, I think you're going to be in for a rude awakening, right? Like Fanatics is going to change the game, and it's really a matter of evolving with their plans, because they also control the product releases and things like that too, right? They have a lot of control that other breakers obviously don't have. So I think if you're a breaker, if you're like a whatnot streaming service as well, you got to kind of have honestly, I think it's wise to diversify revenue somehow. You got to think creatively at this point, and it's not coming yet, but I would start right away to try to experiment with different ideas. Try to find another niche, instead of just waiting to see what Fanatics ultimately does. Because I agree, at the end of the day, if Fanatics could see that they can make more dollars, they're definitely going to do that. It's a business, and right. They have investors that they need to pay as well, right? So I think, it's an interesting development. Not really of a surprise. Maybe it's always the timing that surprises me, like how fast they seem to be moving. Right. And 2023 is good. And you know what? For the hobby in general, for collectors, the more options you have, I think the better for us as buyers, as collectors.
100%, for sure.
Right? So I'm really looking forward to how Fanatics runs it. Maybe hop into one of their breaks and see what the experience is like. Right. I'm sure the customer service is already top notch compared to other breakers or other companies, because they've been running a smooth business all these years with their memorabilia and things like that too, right? So, and just being native to the digital space, I think that's going to be huge for Fanatics, and right. just have a leg up on the competition that way.
And accountability For those that have never done breaking like myself, and how, we always say, hey, see, look at these guys, they're scamming. See, look at these guys. I knew, even though everyone says they're great, look at what happened to these guys. And then you have a big company like Fanatics come in. It could capture those that didn't really have faith in the service or the entertainment, and now they'll be like, you know what, they're having a sale, 30% off a break. Like, maybe I'll try it out. And then that's how they get you.
then you become an addict.
Yeah.
A degenerate.
Oh man.
Welcome to the club. Yeah. Definitely, I think that's a really good point. I think there'll be more people coming into the hobby as a result. There's more trust in bigger corporations or bigger companies, right? Because of the accountability, because of the reputation they have too. So
right.
I'm looking forward to it. I think they said, again, in the article, it's the later half of this year. So I'm sure that'll be coming up sooner than later. So we'll see how it goes. All right, that's I think that's a wrap for today's Friday discussion. I was going to sign off without drawing the winner. So Hyung or John, give me a number from 1 to 5. I'll randomize it, and I'll take the first person off on the list after the complete randomization is done, and they'll be their winner.
Well, let's go with 4.
4? Okay, here we go. I already inputted the name, so 1, 2, 3, 4. There will be parallels. That's the handle.
There will be parallels. I like him already. You're on my side. You owe me a beer.
I like that. I like that handle. That's funny and clever. There will be parallels. We'll reach out to you on Instagram, and then we'll get it to you as soon as possible. All right. Thanks again for all our listeners to our podcast. We appreciate you guys, and we'll see you next Tuesday for a full new show then. Okay, bye. Hey, thanks for listening to Cards to the Moon. We'd really appreciate you subscribing to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can also connect with each of us on Instagram at 5cardguys, or you can follow Hyung at Integrity Sports Cards, or John at TradeU at Recess. You can also check us out at 5cardguys.com. Thanks again, and hope to connect soon.